It seems as though these days everything is racist, and the latest thing that they are calling racist is Shakespeare's Birthplace. Yes, apparently it needs to be decolonized, and this isn't just some random commentator saying this needs to happen. No. The Shakespeare Birthplace Trust has agreed that their place that they look after has white supremacy, needs to be decolonized, and they're going to be altering their collections in this birthplace, which is of course open to the public to go and visit, to make sure that there's no more white supremacy. Who would have thought Shakespeare is a horrible, evil, white supremacist, and we need to make sure that we alter the representation of the history on him to make sure everyone knows that he is an evil white man, not one of the greatest playwrights in history. You cannot make this stuff up, and when I show you the reasons why they claim that it needs to be decolonized, you guys are going to be absolutely shocked. But before we get into that, make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. We really appreciate all the support here at Reasoned. So let's take a look at this. So his birthplace, this is in the Telegraph today, is being decolonized following concerns that the playwright being used to promote white supremacy. And it's Shakespeare's Birthplace Trust, as I mentioned, that owns the building and have the archival material on his birth and all of that, and they say they are going to be decolonizing their collection to create a more inclusive museum experience. Oh, don't we just love that word, inclusive? I'm sure that it will be a much more exciting visit to Shakespeare's birthplace after they've made it more inclusive. Right, now look at this, and it gets worse than this, so do hang on. This process includes exploring the continued impact of empire on the collection, the impact of colonialism on world history, and how Shakespeare's work has played a part in this. Right, Shakespeare was an evil colonialist. Basically, anyone who was alive at the time when Britain had an empire is basically an evil white supremacist. I feel like that is the conclusion that the left have come to. We cannot celebrate the achievements of an amazing playwright because he was alive at the time when Britain had an empire. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The left literally despise this country and its heritage, and seemingly the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, who you would think would be proud of the collection that they take care of, and his birthplace that they show to people, they hate the guy as well, and they hate our history. Honestly, it's ridiculous. The Trust stated that some items in its collections and archives may contain language or depictions that are racist, sexist, homophobic, or otherwise harmful. Like, can we just accept that at different times in history there were different cultural norms which may not be acceptable today? Yeah, being gay wasn't really that trendy back then, and maybe if you were found to be gay you would not have been treated very well back in the Shakespeare days, but time has moved on. People understand that there are differences between today and history, but that doesn't mean that anyone who was alive, and just because Shakespeare wasn't like a campaigner for LGBT rights and is, therefore apparently complicit in homophobia or whatever, does that mean that we should just, disregard him and say that he didn't do any good and that he didn't write some amazing plays? He's just unbelievable. And wait for this, it gets worse. So here we learn some more of the reasons why we need to basically wipe away Shakespeare's legacy. So the process of decolonizing, which typically means moving away from Western perspectives, comes after concerns were raised that Shakespeare's genius was used to advance ideas about white supremacy. And we had this researcher, Helen Hopkins, she's the one leading the charge on this, demanding that changes be made to the collection. The research took issue with the Trust's quaint Stratford attractions comprising the childhood homes and shared family home of Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway, his wife, because the bard was presented as a universal genius. The idea of Shakespeare's universal genius benefits the ideology of white European supremacy. This is because it presents European culture as the world standard for high art, a standard which was pushed through colonial inculcation and the use of Shakespeare as a symbol of British cultural superiority and Anglo-cultural supremacy. I mean, this is just beyond belief. So apparently, this is how I read this. They're basically saying, if you believe that Britain is culturally superior to other countries when it comes to art, when it comes to literature, when it comes to playwriting, then you are a white supremacist and you're evil. You know what? Call me a white supremacist, but I will happily put my hands up and say Britain has got some of the best cultural history in the world when it comes to things like literature, like playwriting, like art, okay? Can we just be proud of the fact that that is one thing that our country has done well compared to other countries? I will happily say, yeah, I think that Shakespeare's playwriting was better than maybe, I don't know, the typical playwriting in Kenya or whatever country you want to pick. Why can't we be proud of the parts of our history that shine through? Okay, it's one thing saying that Britain needs to apologise for the things it did bad, but apparently we need to also apologise for the things that we've done well in our history. Because it's evil and makes you a white supremacist if you champion anything that Britain has done well in the past, because then you're saying our culture is superior to other cultures. This is beyond belief. Now let's just look before we finish at a couple of tweets on this. So Douglas Carswell, he says, why do the custodians of English heritage hate our English heritage? Very good question. Very good question. Laura Dodsworth says, Shakespeare's genius is universal because he captured the depth of human nature like no one else. European civilization has produced the greatest works of literature, art, and music. Why pretend otherwise? Exactly. Why does it make you a white supremacist if you say that the Europeans, they produced some of the best literature and art in the world? Okay? We don't need to live in this like false reality where we pretend that every other country has exactly the same level of amazing literature and art that we do. Like, every country has got different strengths, right? Okay? Like, for example, I will quite happily say that they make amazing curries in India. And that's one part of their culture. That's awesome. I absolutely love an Indian curry. Absolutely love it. The Brits are absolutely shit at making curries, right? Our food culture, I think, is pretty rubbish. We just take a few rubbish things from other countries. I mean, we've got, what? Fish and chips? That's kind of it, really. So I don't think that we do that well. But I think that we do literature, art, and music well. What's wrong with that? And then last tweet. Chris Parry says it is an example of British cultural superiority, just as Aristotle and Plato are examples of ancient Greek cultural superiority. Get over it, you thickos. Very well said. And on that note, we will end this video. I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.